Greeting, YouTube. Wisconsin has a state prosecutor, one Scott Southworth. He's issued an order that any teacher, sex education teacher specifically, that follows the guidelines of a new state law requiring them to inform children about the proper use of contraception, that if they do this, he will file charges against them for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Because apparently, in Wisconsin, it is against the law for children under the age of consent to have sex with each other. Now, I'm not sure if Mr. Southworth is aware of this, but people start having sex as soon as their hormones kick in. They often do this consensually because they like each other. And, surprise, surprise, hormones don't necessarily follow a calendar. This can happen for some people as young as 11, may not hit some people until they're in their late teens. But it hits everybody eventually. And at some point, they're going to find themselves attracted to somebody, and they're probably going to want to engage in some physical contact with them. This may well happen under the age of consent. In my state, the age of consent is 16. So it happens, but a little less frequently than if it happens in places where the age of consent is 18. And the concept that you would file charges against someone for spreading information, important, health-based information, is just stunning. It ignores the fact that what he has said is stupid and also illegal, because when a state has a law, the prosecutor doesn't get to decide if that law is or is not enforced. As a prosecutor, he can only do something if someone breaks the law. So, if the state says, sex education teachers, you must teach students how to properly use contraception, and if the sex education teachers in question tell their students, I am not going to teach you how to use contraception, then he could file charges against them because they would be breaking the law. But if someone is informed that they must teach sex education with the use of contraception, and they actually teach sex education with the use of contraception included, then they are following the law. So how can a prosecutor file charges against someone for following the law? It would be akin to someone who drives at 54 miles an hour in a state that has a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit and giving them a ticket for driving 54 miles an hour. I wouldn't understand that any more than I understand this, at least from a legal standpoint, because from a legal standpoint, Mr. Southworth is talking out of his ass. However, this isn't about a legal decision. I'm going to let you think for 1 minute. Oh, actually, I'll give you 3 seconds. What political party does Mr. Southworth belong to? He's a Republican, and I believe that the term for what he's doing at the moment is called political grandstanding. He's making a political statement out of a state law meant to protect children's health and protect them from unwanted pregnancies and unwanted STDs or STIs, depending on how you want to talk about use what terminology you prefer. This man is an asshat. He is a fool. Probably a fool with a political motivation. I would not be surprised if Mr. Southworth is going to eventually run for some kind of office in the near future. One where he will probably not use his legal degree because apparently he doesn't know what it's for other than maybe wiping his ass. This kind of political grandstanding is nothing new. People have been doing it since the very first people have learned how to speak. Alright, as soon as somebody figured out that they could impress others with their use of words, they started attempting to impress others, and they started to politically grandstand to achieve that goal. But in this case, he's politically grandstanding on a topic which could adversely affect the health children in the state of Wisconsin. Because anyone under the age of 18 is technically a child. Now, hormones may say they're not all that childlike, and I freely admit this. And I'm well aware of the fact that teenagers have sex. In fact, I don't ever forget that. I remember being a teen. It was a motivating goal in my life. I also don't forget the fact that abstinence, a completely and utterly empty policy, has a 95% failure rate. And only a Republican could back something that has a 95% failure rate. That's astounding. I used to work in quality, and if something was under 2% failure, it was considered an acceptable percentage. You were happy about it, you always tried to drive it down, but under that percentage, sometimes there was nothing you could do about it, particularly if it was a very old or clunky process. But anything over 2% was considered bad. And if you got over 2%, you had to do something, fix the system, fix the process, find a solution. And if something had this 5% failure rate, you shut everything down. Boom! Nothing got done until that problem got solved. So if your policy has a 95% failure rate, maybe you have a problem. Maybe you're letting politics blind you to reality. Because objective truth, at that point, is slapping you in the head like a baseball bat. And yet some people continue to ignore it. So I'm hoping that Mr. Southworth doesn't try to do what he is saying he's going to do, because he's going to lose. He's going to make some teachers' lives miserable. He's going to hurt the education of the children in the state of Wisconsin. And if he does make this attempt, I hope that he loses his position, because he should, because he's using his position to further a political agenda, and that is not his job as a prosecutor. His job is to uphold the laws of the state he is in. If he refuses to do that job, he can leave, or be forced to leave. It's that simple. You do the job you're paid to do. You do it right, or get out. I make parts for a living. If I don't do that right, they will get rid of me. It isn't a complex concept. It's just that if I screw up, I make a few parts that no one's going to want to buy. If this asshat does what he says he's going to do, we're going to have students that are informed and who can make decisions, right, life-risking decisions. And that right there is criminal.